But it's Easter, so I shouldn't.
Oh, no, not Joe.
So a man went on vacation. A man went on vacation in the Middle East with his family, including his mother-in-law. And while they were visiting Jerusalem, his mother-in-law passed away. She died. And with the death certificate in his hand, he went to the American consulate to make arrangements to send her body back home again for a proper burial. The agent told him to send the body back would cost around $5,000, kind of costly, and it's very expensive because they could bury her in Jerusalem for $150. So, you know, that seemed like a better plan to the one man. And the son-in-law said, he thought for a brief moment, and then he said, I don't care how much it costs to send her back. I want her to be buried in the States. After hearing this, the agent, the other man, said, that's really very, very touching. You must have really loved your mother-in-law an awful lot, considering the difference in price. No, it's not that at all, said the man. You see, I know of a case many, many years ago of a person who was buried in Jerusalem, and on the third day he rose from the dead. I just can't take that chance.
Yes. You're good. You're good. Good delivery.
So, over 2,000 years ago, there was a man in Jerusalem who was buried in Jerusalem, and on the third day he did rise. He rose from the dead. And that occurrence changed the course of human history forever. It really did. It was a huge impact. The course of human events changed because this one man stood strong in a time of his life where there was significant change. The death of the physical body to the resurrection of the divine body. So this whole month has been about change. And so this is one of the most powerful examples of change, of really moving to that place of letting go of the physical body, because you know that the resurrection is up into the light of God. And it's a divine experience. And it is the ultimate. It's where we all go. So this morning, we're going to take a close look at Jesus, our brother, the master teacher, the way shower, as our role model. As our role model. Our supreme example for standing strong in the face of significant change. And change seems to be coming at us right now in our lives furiously and fast. As a humanity, as a species, this change is really taking place. And it's moving us forward to this new leap in consciousness that we are seeing all around us. In fact, right now we're moving through what anthropologist and social scientist Jean Houston calls jump time. This is jump time, folks. Jump time, according to Jean Houston, is a moment in the eternal cycle of life when we monumentally shift, listen to this, every aspect of our experience. Much as humanity did for the 300 years when we went through that Renaissance period. If you've read history, then you remember that, and 300 years compared to eternity is not a whole long, but everything changed in the Renaissance. Our culture changed, our commerce changed, our politics changed, our religions changed, everything changed. And this is what, and nothing was ever the same again through that Renaissance in our human species history. But we are now in a new Renaissance. This is a new Renaissance, and it's not taking 300 years. It's happening in like 30 years. It is happening so fast. And everything is changing. Everything is changing. So in a time of turmoil, which a lot of us might be, going through a little bit here and there. But in that turmoil, that's where we can find peace. I want to explain this. And it's not taking that 300 years. It's happening fast. It's happening in this real time. It's happening really, really quickly. So I've been quoting from Neil Donald Walsh's book, and I'd like to continue that. He writes, and what's this book? It's about change. Right now, he writes, so much is changing for so many people. The world's economies are undergoing radical altercations, causing all of humanity to realign its basic life priorities. The world's politics have changed, and we are seeing things we never thought we would see. The world's medicine and science and technology are uncovering amazing secrets that are shifting our understanding of the very basics of life itself. And on a personal level, he writes, people are losing their jobs, their savings, even their homes. All of this is part of a larger process now going on in the world. The whole of human society is in the throes of reinventing itself. Yet most of us are doing it without a diagram, without a roadmap, and without any tools. That's kind of like, do you ever feel that this is going on in your life? Mm-hmm. You don't even know what's going on. You just know that the turmoil, it feels like turmoil because of all this unrest and unsettling and change. Lots of really powerful change. So this month we've chosen to access a few tools to put in our tool belts, our spiritual tool belts, to help us navigate through this course of a bumpy road or straight downhill and up again, like a roller coaster kind of effect, so that we can come to a place of peace in our lives while we are going through the turmoil. That is the whole beauty of these spiritual truths, this teaching that we teach here, is that these are tools that we can actually use to help us when we feel like we're so helpless. We feel like we're in the future of a state of chaos when we can learn to remember to align with the peace and the joy and the divinity within. And last week we looked at a very powerful tool that we can consciously change. It will change everything if you remember it. And it was choose not to go it alone. If you were here, you don't have to do this by yourself. I talked about Barbara King, Bishop, Chief, Reverend Carol Mayo, and I had the honor of listening to her. And she had 7 really significant people in her life that she prayed for when things looked like they were going really in a downward spiral. And after praying every Monday together as a group, they totally got new ideas and changed everything. So what we're saying is this is a community that supports you. You don't have to do this alone. That's why we have classes. That's why we have Sunday service and workshops. That's why we have practitioners. So you don't have to do it alone. We talked about reaching out to those who are awake. Spiritually, it helps if we reach out to someone that's spiritually awake, like-minded people. And it's like Jesus prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane right before he was arrested, but he prayed with his disciples. He prayed with a group. And last week we talked about those disciples falling asleep. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. They fell asleep. So people fall asleep, but we are talking about waking up. Awakened people is who we need during our time of change. We want to be with people, and awakened people means people who know that there is another way of operating, a more positive way of operating while we're going through all of these changes in our lives, because we're all going through them together as a human species. That's the unity that Stephen was singing of. That's the oneness. It doesn't make any difference what religion you are. We're all in this together. All of us. So, another spiritual tool for that toolbox is, this morning, change your idea about future change. So knowing that everything that has ever happened to you, everything, has been for your higher good, even when it doesn't feel like it's for your higher good. that every single change has been for your higher good. This is how we evolve. This is how we become more of. It's very empowering for us to know that everything is happening for a reason, for our own good, for our good. And what I notice, and I do this too, when we're going through stuff and it really feels crummy, we'll say to our like-minded friends and community, but it's all good. But I know it's all good. Because we've started the shift in consciousness to recognize that no matter what is taking place, it is all good. I know that there is a higher purpose here. I know that my good is unfolding here. I know that there is a lesson for me to move into here. So that's the point of the change. And change is going to happen. We're not going to stop change. The changes that have happened or are happening in our lives are supposed to happen. And how do we know that? How do we know that? Because they wouldn't happen, right? So they happen for a reason. They happen so that we can, if we are, especially if we're spiritually awake, we can evolve to a higher state of being. And it can be frightening, it can be challenging. So the changes that have happened are supposed to happen, but really deepening into that idea that we can be completely open to a divine idea about our future. Future change. We don't have to fear it in the normal sense. We don't have to fear it, but rather we can use the new acronym that we have for fear. Feeling excited and ready. Feeling excited and ready. Yeah, let's say that. Feeling excited and ready. Because that fear thing can really be a powerful energy. It can really knock us off our feet. But it's also a time when we can feel excited about, well, what does the universe have in store for me now? Now that this has happened, what's we don't know. But we can expect the good, and by expecting the good to take place, we are activating the law to bring it forth into our experiences. And so Walsh also writes, what I'm saying here, he says, is that an extraordinary life emerges from a change in your idea about future change. What you project, you produce. What you conclude, you create. All that stuff is what spiritual teachers of every stripe and color, of every persuasion and belief, have been sharing with humankind since the time began. And he continues, all spiritual teachers say the same thing. Don't you think that's a bit unusual? All religions teach the same doctrine. Don't you find that interesting? On this particular subject, on the question of how life works and what makes the world go round, every dogma agrees. As you believe, it will be done unto you. Every dogma believes that. So really, that's our creative process. What we think goes into the law and is activated. We activate the law, which is neutral, and I look at our symbol. And then come the effects. Everything that happens in our life is an effect. It's not the cause. And that's where we're shifting. To know that we can come up with a new cause. We don't have to decide by the effect. And of course, this whole concept that is done to you as you believe was the fundamental tenet of the master teacher, Jesus. And he worked that on this earth plane. He really used that creative process, clearly. And so today we have the opportunity to look straight at what's going on and saying, it's all good. It's like the surrender thing. I surrender. It's all good. It's all God. And if you remember Emma Curtis Hopkins, wonderful, she's a mystic, wonderful teacher, her powerful affirmation was, this too is good, this too is God, this too is for me, and I demand to see the blessing in it. I've been demanding the law. I mean, just demand. In that demanding, you are claiming your good. There's nothing wrong with getting powerful in your claiming of that good. In fact, the more powerful you claim your good, the clearer and the more beautiful it comes into your experience. Then add, after you've claimed your good, a huge thank you, God. Thank you, life. Thank you, because that gratitude, remember, is that high vibration, for making my life so magnificent. That we can create. We have this ability. That's the awakened state, is that we awaken to the fact that we have the ability to create our experiences. By how we respond to what's going on, we create the next experience. That's a huge thank you. Thank you, God. And remember, as Jesus was praying in the garden, remember this, he had a major shift in consciousness. We see it happen when he says, take this cup from me. The cup represents fear. Take this fear from me. And then he shifts into the next part of his transformation where he says, not my will, but thy will. Not my will, but thy will. Thy will be done. It is in that moment in the garden that he stands tall in the change. Tall in that change. Because he knows what's going to happen. That he realizes the will of God. The will of God can only be for life itself. Right? It can only be for life itself. Therefore, whatever change that he might be going through in the physical realm is for his divine unfoldment. Great example. Great example. Our master teacher changed his idea about future change because he knew what was coming. And his decision, that decision that he consciously made, changed the course of humankind. It changed the course. So then we move on to the second. Change your idea about life. So as we change our idea about future change, we can also change our idea about life itself, which is our next to last tool. So what is your basic thing? What is your basic philosophy about life? There's a core belief that you have within you about life. Could it be that life is a struggle and then you die? And remember many years ago that was a very popular saying, but they didn't use the word struggle. Do you believe that? Do you believe that life is a struggle? Well, you struggle for the sake of the coping. Or do you believe that there is a power for good that is, this is a friendly universe, and that God has your back, God has your front, God has your inside, God has it all. This divine energy is the truth of who you are. It is your aliveness. It is that divine activity taking place within you. And it is filled with joy. It is filled with peace. And it is filled with love. That's the truth. And so when we leave these bodies behind, as Jesus did, he knew the truth of his divine nature, that he was going home. That he was going into his divine realm fully and completely. So when we make contact with that place deep within us, the essence of our beingness, if you will, we can hear the still small voice that was saying to us that life was not meant to be a struggle. It really wasn't meant to be. It was meant to be lived in joy, in enthusiasm, in expectancy. That's the truth. That's what life was meant for. We were meant to be extraordinary, not ordinary, extraordinary. Each and every person who is individualized in this God stuff is the truth of who you are, individualized. How can you say all this, you might ask, or right now, when I am going through the loss of my job, when I am going through so much in my life? And that's a really fair question. Because sometimes it's, we go through these things and we forget. Which is why we have community, to remember. How can you say this? You might ask, when my loved one just died, when my long relationship has ended, when I have lost my home. These are difficult, stress-filled moments, and we don't deny that they exist. And believe me, I know these changes. It's not like I don't go through them. I go through them right along with you. But I keep myself very busy, being here on Sundays, being in classes with my dear community, and that helps me stay anchored in knowing that I am a divine being and I don't have to go it alone. I don't have to go it alone. So I'm not suggesting that all those times are not stressful. They are. But even when those stress-filled events can challenge every spiritual belief you might have, there is the soul's absolute knowing at the same time. The soul is absolutely knowing. When all is said and done, really, when everything is happening for our highest good, the soul knows that. That's why we can say, when we've reprogrammed ourselves through these teachings, I know it's going on, but it's all good. We can say that because the soul knows that to be the truth, the spiritual truth. These words of Ernest Holmes ring true to me. He says in his textbook, to desert the truth in the hour of need is to prove that we do not know the truth. When things look the worst, is the supreme time to demonstrate to ourselves that there are no obstructions to the operation of truth. There are no obstructions. Universally, life is a process by which God expresses God, experiences God, expands God. It does this through its creative power. Individually, life is intended for you to develop a direct experience of who you really are. Who you really are. In those times when you crash and burn, you get to know a whole nother side of who you are. Anyone ever been there?
Hello.
But that's exactly what happened with Jesus in the garden. His death. And then the resurrection into the divinity. Raising up. Life. Everlasting. We don't believe in the death of the spirit, of the soul. We believe that it is forever, eternal. So this is the time that we can move into that belief that this is a friendly universe. Just keep reminding yourself, this is a friendly universe. And I don't have to go this alone. I don't have to go this alone. We live in a universe that is always spiraling upward, that is always expanding, and that is always evolving its expression through us, as us. We are the conduits because we recognize a higher power. And then we move to the final tool. Change your idea about who you are. Who is having this experience anyway? I'm here with all of you, but I'm having my experience, and each and every one is having their own individualized experience of this life. You can, of course, identify with a number of yous that populate your world, so we'll go through these. There is the little you and the big you, the injured you and the healed you, the scared you and the brave you, the powerless you and the powerful you, the worried you and the confident you. You go in and out of these states. But this tool, this last tool that I'm giving you, asks you to identify with that which is more than any of those yous. You are far, far, far more than any of those things. All put together, far more. Limitless potentiality, right? The you that you are is God in particular form. You are God in particular form. You are an aspect of